everybody. It's nice to have you back in my home again today. Levi and Claire and I are here to give you some more tips. I have 10 tips regarding the secrets to buying real estate. Tip number 1 needs to be done way in advance of when you decide to purchase. 6 to 8 months prior to the purchase, you should actually put a freeze on your spending habits to a certain degree. You don't want to buy anything that's large, a large purchase. You don't want to move money out of accounts. You don't want to extract money out of your 401k. Anything that could potentially be suspicious to a lender when you go to pre-qualify for the mortgage. This is because that lender is going to pull probably the last 12 months of your bank statements and all of your financial accounts, and they want to make sure you're not robbing Peter to pay Paul, right? So they don't want you going online to loanmoneytome.com and taking out $50,000 for your down payment and your closing costs and putting that in your savings account. They want to know that you truly do have the funds in order to support this purchase. So that's number 1. Tip number 2, I need you to check out the neighborhood once you find the property that you feel like you're in love with. And that means to go there at different hours of the day. Go there in the mornings, mid-afternoon, and evening so that you can check out the neighborhood properly and get a feel for how the general consensus of how the property feels in that neighborhood. Check the crime rate statistics, check about the schools. Ask about recent sales volumes in the area. Has there been a lot of house turnover, right? There can be various reasons for that, but it would be something that you would want to know about. Join the Facebook or Instagram or Nextdoor apps that have community pages. And for that particular community that you're interested in, you'd be surprised at the conversations that you're going to find. Of course, there's going to be some people that are just complainers, but you'll be able to weed through all of that and get the general consensus of how the neighborhood is and how some of your neighbors may be. If there's an HOA, find out if they have social events, how often they get together. In my particular neighborhood, we have like wine and cheese and crackers night, or we have community yard sales several times a year. That would be a big selling point for me if I were buying a home, is to have an HOA where there's a real community feel of friendship and camaraderie. Tip number 3 is you need a list of what must-haves, and that needs to be communicated to your realtor in advance so that your realtor can easily find the best property for you. And you need to prioritize them by like group 1 and group 2. Like this, group 1 is the things absolutely, the house has to have this or I can't buy it. And then group 2 is this is something that I really like and I would prefer that the house have it, but it's something I could live without. Okay. Tip number 4, you need to ask about the appliance, how old they are, and if they have any warranties on them still, and any major service or repairs that had been done on them in the last few years. Particularly pay attention to your heating and air conditioning and your hot water heater. Those are the 2 big ticket items that can cause you a problem. Now, you can buy a home warranty as part of, your new purchase, which will help cover any surprises there. Plus, you're going to get a home inspection. So hopefully any of that would be uncovered and you could deal with it before closing. But things happen, right? I mean, it just happens. So it's always good to ask those questions in advance. I bought a home one time, and the first time I opened the microwave, the door handle came off. So you just don't know, right? And surely the person who lives there knows that handle came off every time you opened it. Tip number 5, that is, be prepared for the sneaky costs, right? So there's always sneaky costs, or could be potentially sneaky costs when you are closing on a house. When you go to get your loan company will give you a loan estimate, which will include an estimated closing costs. And usually they're pretty close, but 3 days before your closing, you'll get the actual closing costs, because they will have finalized all that in preparation. They have to disclose all that 3 days in advance. So the thing is that there can be things that creep up at the last minute, related to utilities and that sort of thing. So you just want to be prepared, and I usually try to cushion whatever it is that when I get that loan estimate for the closing costs, I kind of cushion my expectations by 10%. And that way, if it's equal to the exact amount, then I'm happy. It's a surprise. It's a happy surprise, not a sad surprise, right? Nobody wants to have to come up with something, 10% of something that you were expecting when you only have 72 hours to do it, right? Buying a home is stressful enough without having to pull a rabbit out of a hat at the last minute. So those types of costs can include the HOA fees, determining whether you're in a flood area, and then the property taxes. So I would plan a little bit of a cushion there as well, because it's not uncommon, for a property that has recently sold, for the tax assessor to come knocking on the door and visit, and then you could be reassessed. So I would cushion that estimate as well. So I actually had that happen with a property that I purchased where it was assessed after, and it went up considerably. Fortunately, they were very kind to me, and they incrementally increased it over like a 3-year period, because it was such a difference. But that's something that you do need to take into consideration. Like, you look at that bottom line of what your mortgage payment is, it's $1,500, I can afford that. But you need to also realize that, you can have that stuff escrowed in, but if it increases, then that increases that payment. Okay, tip number 6, you need to ask questions to the seller regarding encroachment and where the property lines are and that sort of thing. Now, the seller may not even fully know, right? There should be a survey that was on, that's on file from at some point for that property. So it'd be good to pull that and see what that is. You should get a survey when you close on your property anyway, but that survey could be too late. Because you may have already made plans. I purchased a house and I needed a dog run, and I was told that my property went all the way to the fence on the left and beyond the shed on the right. And then I put up a dog run, and lo and behold, my property did not go to the fence. So my dog run was 2 feet over the property line. I was encroaching on my neighbor's property. And on the right, my shed wasn't even on my property. So that came as a surprise once the survey came in, right, which was at closing. So I didn't really want to know that at closing. So I'd ask those questions in advance. The other thing about that is there's such a thing as called prescription right of way. And so again, in my experience, I had a property that was positioned where there were townhouses behind me, and then there was a shopping was in front of my development. The people from the townhouses would walk straight through my property to go shopping and then get their groceries and such, and then walk back to their townhouses. And I have a dog that's in a fenced-in yard, and he would absolutely that would fit every single time somebody walked through my yard. So I went to complain about it, and I was told, well, they had, there was an understanding that has been in place for over 20 years that they were allowed to walk through there to go to the shopping center. So those are types of things that would be nice to have disclosed to you prior to settlement, because it can make a difference in, whether you're going to buy the home. Tip number 7, you need to ask if any structures on the property are the original structure, and if not, if they were enhancements or that was made to the property, then was there a building permit? Because if there isn't, then it can come back on you. I always thought, mistakenly, that if I bought a property and if they didn't get building permits, then oh well, I mean, I can't be held accountable for somebody else not getting building permits. But that's not true, because if I go to do something and they come in and say, wait, this was a 2-bedroom rancher, now there's 4 bedrooms, you actually could end up being the one who has to foot the bill on that, because they'll have to rectify that one way or the other. That planning and zoning is going to get their deal. They're going to get their permits one way, whether it's now or whether it's once you own the property. Tip number 8, whatever you think you may need for closing. I talked about that already. Tip number 9, check carefully for low-lying areas, because this area tends to flood. So it may be perfectly dry when you're having your inspection or when you're visiting the property, but if there's time, then if you have a deluge rain that just totally pours down, then I would go check the property after the rain and see if there's any low-lying areas or if there's water that's collected under the house, because those can be a problem for the homeowner at some point in time. Then the last one is to engage a confident, qualified real estate agent, somebody who knows the ropes and can stay on top of contingencies and things in the contract. So you're going to have enough to do without having to deal with keeping track of the contract and making sure that all of the people have been contacted, that the inspection happens on time, that the loan process is, going through smoothly, and that sort of thing. So have somebody in your court, somebody that you're comfortable with, that you don't, you're not afraid to call anytime, in order to ask questions or to follow up and see where things are. This is very stressful. It's fun and exciting, but they say, there's some things that are extremely stressful on you, and buying a home is one of them, right? So you want somebody that is going to support you through that process and see that it ends up being a magical event for you because they have your back. So it's enough for the tips for today. I appreciate you letting me come into your home and talk to you again. You have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you soon.